I never imagined a story like this would begin on a cold November night in downtown Chicago. The streets were buzzing with the kind of electricity only a big city carries. Cars honking, people rushing, neon signs blinking like they were fighting the darkness. I had slipped out of the venue hours before soundcheck, craving air, craving distance, craving anything that didn't feel like the pressure of another tour, another stage, another night where the world expected perfection from me. I kept my hood up, sunglasses on even though it was evening, hoping no one would look too closely. I wanted to feel like a regular woman walking down a regular street. I wanted to disappear for a moment. And then I heard it. My own voice, or at least the echo of it, floating from a street corner on Michigan Avenue. A woman's voice, cracked with cold, but rich, powerful, trembling with a kind of honesty that made my heart stutter. She was singing, "I have nothing," and the rawness in her tone made me stop right where I was. Her voice didn't sound like someone imitating me. It sounded like someone surviving. I stepped closer, slowly, letting the music pull me in. She was sitting on the ground, her coat old and torn, hair tucked under a faded beanie. A cardboard sign lay beside her, but I didn't read it. I didn't want sympathy to be the first thing I felt. I wanted to hear her. I wanted to see her. She clutched a microphone-shaped stick in her hand, pretending it was real. And God, she sang like she had lived every line. And then she hit the chorus. Not perfectly, but sincerely. Painfully. Beautifully. People walked by, some dropping coins, some not looking at her at all. But she didn't break. She didn't shrink. She sang as if her life depended on it. I stood behind her, close enough to hear her breath between lyrics. Close enough to feel the tremble in her voice. She didn't know I was there. She didn't know Whitney Houston herself was standing inches from her back, listening to her pour her soul onto frozen concrete. And as I watched her sing my words I had sung on stages around the world, I felt a strange, trembling question rise inside me. Why does her voice break my heart more than my own ever could? This wasn't just a woman singing on the street. This was a story, a life, a truth begging to be heard. I took one more step toward her, ready to reveal myself, but then someone shouted my name from across the street. I froze. She kept singing, unaware that her entire life was one breath away from changing forever. And that's where everything began. If this story, the night air in Chicago had that sharp, metallic bite that slips under your coat, no matter how tightly you wrap it. I remember pulling my hood lower over my face as I stepped out of the service door behind the arena. Security didn't see me leave, which is exactly how I wanted it. The noise inside, tech crews shouting, speakers thudding, managers pressing me about tomorrow, felt like too much. I just needed room to breathe, to feel something real for a moment. I walked fast, head down, weaving through crowds that didn't know they were brushing past Whitney Houston. Maybe that should have scared me. Maybe it should have felt lonely. But to me, anonymity felt like relief. I could be a woman, not an icon. A heartbeat, not a headline. My steps slowed only when I heard something that didn't belong to the street. Something too familiar, too haunting. A voice. A woman's voice. She wasn't polished. She wasn't trained. She wasn't performing. She was surviving. Singing like she had nothing left but the words coming out of her mouth. My words. At first I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But then I heard the chorus, my chorus, cutting through the cold. I have nothing. She was singing one of the most demanding songs I ever recorded, but she didn't sound afraid of it. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was holding on to the lyrics like they were the last thread keeping her from falling apart. I stopped at the corner, letting the people rushing by hide me. And finally, I saw her. She sat on a flattened cardboard box, her knees pulled close, a torn brown coat wrapped around her like armor. A cracked coffee cup sat in front of her with a handful of coins inside, but she didn't look at it, not once. Her focus was somewhere far away, someplace only she could see. And her voice carried that cold Chicago wind, all its broken edges and all its stubborn strength. Something shifted inside me then, something I wasn't ready for. I'd spent years hearing people cover my music, mimic it, rehearse it, fight through it. But this This wasn't imitation. This was a testimony. Her voice shook on certain notes, cracked on others, but every break felt honest. It hurt, and it made me wonder what kind of life she had lived to understand the pain beneath those lyrics. I moved closer, slowly, quietly. Close enough to hear her breath hitch before she reached the high note. Close enough to see the way her fingers trembled, not from fear but from Chicago's unforgiving cold. Then I heard her whisper so low I almost missed it. "Come on, you can do this." She wasn't talking to me. She wasn't talking to the crowd. She was talking to herself. Like this corner was her stage, and this song was her last chance at proving she still mattered. I had the urge to kneel next to her, to place a gentle hand on her shoulder, to tell her, "You're not alone, sweetheart." But I didn't move. I just listened. Maybe because, in a strange way, I needed this moment more than she did. The street noise faded. The people blurred. All I could hear was her voice fighting the cold, fighting the night, fighting whatever life had thrown at her. And then she hit the bridge. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but bravely. And sometimes bravery is the most beautiful sound in the world. I took one more step toward her, preparing to reveal myself. My heart hammered so loudly it felt like the whole city could hear it. She had no idea Whitney Houston was standing right behind her. But before I could speak, a voice from across the street shattered everything. "Whitney! Whitney, is that you?" A fan. A man. Shouting. Running. The woman didn't turn around. She kept singing. And I stood there frozen, caught between who I was and who she needed me to be. The man's voice cut through the night like a siren, loud enough to turn a few heads on the sidewalk. "Whitney! Whitney, over here!" he shouted again, waving his arms as he hurried toward me. My instinct kicked in immediately, the instinct every celebrity learns to develop whether they want to or not. Hide your face, lower your head, disappear. I stepped back into the shadow cast by the tall brick building behind the singer, hoping the man had been mistaken. Maybe he only thought he saw me. Maybe the hood and the sunglasses would shield me long enough to slip away. But the homeless woman kept singing, unaware of the chaos rising just a few feet behind her. Her voice trembled in the cold, but she didn't stop. Not when people ignored her. Not when the world rushed past her without noticing. She kept going, because something in her needed to. "Whitney, please tell me that's you," the man said again, breathless now as he reached the curb. He wasn't aggressive, just excited, overwhelmed, the kind of excitement that could easily spiral into something unpredictable. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. The woman hit a soft, fragile note in the chorus, and something about the purity of it made me forget, for a moment, the danger of being recognized. It felt wrong to leave, wrong to walk away before she finished what she poured her heart into. But the man kept scanning the sidewalk, searching. And then his eyes fell on me. "Oh my God, it is you." He took a step forward. And another. I had seconds, maybe less, before he called more attention, before a crowd formed, before cell phones came out, and everything spiraled beyond control. My instincts told me to run. But another voice inside me whispered, "Stay." And before I could decide, the woman finally stopped singing. Not because she finished the song, but because the man's excited voice had broken through her focus. She turned her head slightly, cautious, confused. Her gaze lifted just enough to see me standing behind her. She froze. For a moment, Chicago went silent. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes were wide, wide with disbelief, fear, hope, something deeper than simple shock. She clutched her makeshift microphone tighter, like she needed to hold onto something solid to keep from collapsing. I didn't move. Neither did she. Only the man's excited breathing filled the space between us. Then she whispered, barely audible even to me, "Am I dreaming?" I stepped forward. Not as the superstar the man thought he saw, not as the headline the world wanted, but as a woman witnessing another woman's pain laid bare in the cold. "No, sweetheart," I murmured. "You're not dreaming." Her knees buckled slightly, and she steadied herself with a hand on the pavement. Tears filled her eyes, not from the cold anymore, but from something else, something that hurt to watch. I'm sorry," she stammered. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to." "You didn't do anything wrong," I said gently. "Your voice, that's beautiful." She shook her head violently, almost angry at the compliment. "No, it's not. It's all I have left." Before I could respond, the man stepped even closer, pulling out his phone. "Whitney, can I get a picture?" "Please, just one." I held up a hand, signaling him to stay where he was. His excitement dimmed a little, replaced with uncertainty. "Just give us a minute," I said firmly. He hesitated, then backed away a few steps. The woman wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her coat, but new tears kept falling. "Why are you here?" she whispered. "Why would you be here?" I opened my mouth to answer, but the truth felt too complicated to put into words. I didn't even fully understand it myself. "I heard you sing," I said simply. Her breath caught. And what did you hear?" "A story," I said. "Your story." She looked down, ashamed. "My life isn't worth telling." "Yes, it is," I said. "And I want to know it." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "Why?" I stepped. The crash echoed like a warning shot, sharp, metallic, impossible to ignore. I felt it vibrate through my chest before my mind could even register what it meant. The homeless woman flinched so hard her makeshift microphone fell from her hand and clattered onto the sidewalk. The man who'd been trying to take a picture stumbled backwards, eyes darting toward the alley. I took one instinctive step in front of her. I didn't even think. I just moved. Maybe it was instinct from years of being guarded. Maybe it was something deeper, something human, protective, but in that moment, all I knew was that she needed shielding. The alley was dark, swallowed by shadows and lined with dumpsters and broken crates. Chicago's hum drowned out small noises, but not that one. That crash had been deliberate. Heavy. Close. "Someone's there," the woman whispered, her voice shaking. I heard someone earlier when I was singing. I thought it was just a rat or something." The man swallowed hard. "Should we call the police?" My pulse jumped. Flashing lights, crowds, news trucks. If cops showed up, this moment would explode beyond anything I could contain. That wasn't what she needed. And it wasn't what I needed either. "No," I murmured. "Not yet. Just stay behind me." Her hand gripped the back of my coat, trembling so fiercely I could feel her shaking through the fabric. I could hear her breathing, rapid, shallow, terrified. She wasn't just scared of the alley. She was scared of being seen, being exposed, being vulnerable in front of the one person she never expected to meet. I stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on the darkness. "Who's there?" I called out. No answer, just the wind scraping along the brick. But then movement, a slow shifting of silhouette, a figure leaning just out of sight. The man lifted his phone like a flashlight. "I'm not playing around," he warned, though his voice betrayed his fear. Finally, a voice emerged. Low, rough, male. "I didn't mean to startle anybody," the stranger said. But something about the way he spoke felt off. Not apologetic, not sincere, too casual, like he wanted us to believe him. I narrowed my eyes. "Then step out where we can see you." He hesitated. I could see the outline of his shoulder, the curve of his head. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't stumbling. He was watching. And he'd been watching for a while. When he finally stepped into the light, he wore a hoodie pulled tight around his face, hands buried in his pockets. His eyes darted between me, the homeless woman, and the man with the phone. "I just dropped something," he mumbled. But there was no object on the ground. No sign of anything having fallen. The woman behind me whispered, "That's him. He was here earlier. Just standing there, watching me sing. He didn't give money. He didn't leave. He just stared." Her voice cracked on the last word. I felt her grip tighten. The man with the phone straightened and lifted his chin. "Hey, do you have a problem or something?" The stranger didn't blink. Not with you. My stomach clenched. He was looking at her. His gaze didn't move. Didn't waver. He studied her like he recognized her. Like he'd been waiting for something. And there was something in his eyes that made my skin crawl. Not admiration. Not anger. Purpose. He took one slow step toward us. The man jumped in front of him. Back up, he snapped. I'm serious. The stranger stared, long and cold, then took a step back. I don't want trouble, he said. But the way he said it felt like a lie. Like he was the trouble. And then, without another word, he turned and walked back into the alley, disappearing into the darkness, like he'd never been there. Silence swallowed us again. The woman released my coat, breath shaking so violently I thought she might faint. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Why was he watching me? I didn't do anything. I just sing. I just try to get through the day. I turned to her, holding her shoulders gently. You're safe right now. I'm here. But her eyes weren't on me anymore. Something in the air shifted after that night. I could feel it the moment we stepped away from that alley, like the city itself was holding its breath. The woman, her name, I'd soon learn, was Elena, stayed close to me as we walked toward the busier part of Michigan Avenue. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting to see the shadow of that man following us, but all I saw were crowds, taxis, and the glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. Still, the unease lingered. It clung to her. And maybe to me too. We ducked into a 24-hour diner on the corner. The warmth inside wrapped around us, but it did nothing to ease the tremor in Elena's hands. We slid into a booth. She kept her arms wrapped around herself while I ordered us both hot tea. When the cups arrived, she only stared at hers. You said he watched you before. I began softly. How long has this been going on? Her voice was barely a whisper. 3 nights. Maybe 4. I can't tell anymore. When you live on the street, days get blurry. I reached across the table. Did he ever speak to you? She shook her head. He just stood there. Sometimes farther away. Sometimes closer. At first I thought he was just listening. But then I realized he wasn't listening at all.
He was studying me.
Like he knew me. Like he was waiting for something. My stomach tightened. Did you tell anyone? She let out a small, bitter laugh. Tell who? People don't even look me in the eyes. They walk around me like I'm invisible. She wasn't wrong, and that truth hit harder than I expected. Elena, I said gently, you're not invisible anymore. Her eyes lifted to mine, filled with something fragile, hope mixed with disbelief. Before I could say anything else, the bell above the diner door jingled sharply. Elena flinched. My eyes shot to the entrance. A man walked in. Not the same one from the alley. But the tension in Elena's body didn't ease. She was startled by every movement, every sound. The fear had burrowed deep. I needed to understand who she was, and why someone would be following her. Elena, I said softly, why are you living on the street? Her gaze dropped. Her lips tightened. She hesitated long enough that the silence became its own answer. Then she inhaled shakily. Because I ran. Ran from who? My husband. I froze. She looked up, and suddenly her eyes were flooded with memories she couldn't contain. He was controlling. Angry. The kind of angry that creeps up slowly until you don't recognize the person you married. When I finally tried to leave, he told me he'd rather see me dead than see me free. My blood ran cold. When I escaped, she continued, I left everything. Wallet, phone, ID. I didn't have a choice. I didn't want him to track me. So I ended up on the street. Safer there than in my own house. Do you think the man from the alley was him? She swallowed.
Hard. No.
My husband is still back in Indiana. But that man, she paused, shaking her head. He reminds me of someone my husband used to owe money to. A knot twisted in my stomach. Oh, money. She nodded. He got mixed up with the wrong people. And when he couldn't pay them back, I think they started watching us. Watching me. But when I left, I thought I left all of that behind. The diner suddenly felt smaller. Too small. Before I could respond, a loud crash erupted from outside. People shouting, tires screeching, glass shattering. The entire diner turned to look out the window. A black SUV had slammed into a parked car across the street. But it wasn't the crash that made my heart nearly stop. It was the man who stepped out of the SUV. The hood, the posture, the unmistakable outline. It was him, the man from the alley. He stood there, scanning the street, and his eyes locked directly onto the diner window. Onto Elena. Her breath hitched. Oh God. Whitney, he followed us. He started moving toward the door. My pulse pounded. Elena, I whispered urgently. Get down.
Now.
She slid under the table, trembling violently. The world outside slowed to a terrifying crawl as the stranger reached for the diner door, his hand closing around the handle. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what he wanted. But I knew one thing for certain. He wasn't here by accident. The bell above the diner door jingled as he stepped inside, and the sound felt like a blade slicing through the warm air. Conversations faltered. The clatter of plates softened. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to shrink. The stranger's presence filled the room with something cold, something heavy, something wrong. I stayed seated, back straight, breath steady only on the surface. Under the table, I felt Elena clutch my ankle, her grip desperate, trembling. I pressed my foot back lightly, a silent promise that I wasn't going anywhere. The stranger scanned the diner, eyes sharp, calculating. He wasn't looking for a table. He wasn't looking for food or warmth. He was hunting, and I could feel his gaze closing in. I pulled my hood lower, grateful for the shadow it cast across my face. Recognition was the last thing I needed. If he discovered who I was, the situation would explode into chaos. Cameras, crowds, police, none of which would protect Elena from whatever threat had followed her here. He took 3 slow steps inside, letting the door close behind him. His eyes narrowed, lingering on each booth, each face. The silence stretched so long that a waitress finally approached him, her voice cautious but polite. "Sir, can I help you?" He ignored her. His eyes kept moving. Searching. "Elena," he murmured, almost to himself, "I know you're here." My heartbeat pounded, so hard I felt it in my fingertips. I leaned slightly forward, blocking his view of the booth as much as I could. The waitress tried again, a little firmer. "Sir, if you're not ordering." He cut her off sharply. "Mind your business." Her face paled. I forced myself to breathe slowly, evenly. Panic wouldn't help her. I had to think, had to protect her, had to buy time. "Can I help you?" I said, keeping my voice calm but steady. His head snapped toward my booth. For a moment, I wondered if he recognized me, but his expression didn't change. He didn't see Whitney Houston. He saw an obstacle. "Move," he said flatly.
Now.
I tilted my head slightly. "Why are you looking for her?" I asked. "That's none of your concern," he growled. But I didn't budge. "Maybe it is," I replied. "You followed her. You scared her. And now you've crashed a car to get here. Sounds like my concern." His eyes flicked with something dark, annoyance, maybe even surprise, but not fear. Not hesitation. "You don't know what she's done," he said. "You don't know who she is." Under the table, Elena whispered, barely audible, "Don't listen to him. Please don't listen to him." I kept my eyes locked on the man. "Then tell me, who is she?" His jaw tightened. "Someone who owes my boss a lot of money." A chill rippled up my spine, but something in his voice struck me as off. Too rehearsed. Too practiced. As if he'd told this story many times to many frightened people. "That's not the truth," I said quietly. His nostrils flared. "She ran from her responsibilities. She ran from us. And I'm here to fix that." "By stalking her?" I pressed. "By terrorizing her?" He stepped closer. "You don't understand. This isn't personal. It's business." Elena's hand tightened painfully around my ankle, tears dripping onto the floor. And that's when I realized the truth. He wasn't here for a debt. He was here because Elena had run from a violent husband who owed money, and the husband had sold her out to save himself. This wasn't business. This was betrayal. "She's not going with you," I said, my voice low but steady. "Not tonight. Not ever." For the first time, real anger flickered in his eyes. "Lady, you don't know what you're getting into." "Maybe not," I said. "But I know this. She's under my protection now." He leaned closer, his breath cold, his voice more venom than whisper. "You think your name means anything to the people I work for?" He didn't recognize me,
But he was about to.
Before I could respond, a shout erupted from behind him. "Hey, back away from her." The man with the phone, the fan from earlier, had returned from the restroom, now standing tall, face red with adrenaline. Behind him, 2 other diners rose from their seats, ready to intervene. The stranger's eyes darted around. He wasn't afraid of them, but he knew the attention was growing. I held Elena until her sobs softened into quiet tremors, her face buried against my shoulder as if she could hide from the entire world by pressing herself into the fabric of my coat. I didn't rush her. I didn't speak. Sometimes silence is the only safe place left for someone who's been hunted. When she finally pulled back, her cheeks were streaked with tears, her breathing uneven. "What am I going to do?" she whispered. "He's not going to stop until he finds me. I can't go back out there. I can't sleep on the street again. I can't." "You won't," I said firmly. "You're not doing this alone anymore." Her eyes were wide, frightened, but behind the fear, I saw something else: trust. The kind of trust people don't give easily, especially after the world has turned its back on them. I glanced around the diner. People were still shaken by what had happened. A few offered sympathetic glances, but no one approached. No one dared. The man with the phone stood near the counter, talking quietly with the waitress. When he caught my eye, he gave a small nod, an unspoken "Are you all right?" I returned the same nod. But I knew staying here was not an option. "Elena," I said softly, "we need to leave. That man won't come back right away, but someone like him doesn't disappear without a plan. We have to move before he decides what to do next." She nodded, shaky but determined. "Where do we go?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't know, but because the truth felt too unreal even to my own ears. "With me," I said. Her breath caught.
What? No.
"Whitney, I can't. I can't go with you. What if I bring danger to you? What if—" "Elena," I interrupted gently, "you didn't bring danger to me. I walked into your life. Remember that. And I'm not walking away now." Her lips trembled. "But why? Why would you do that for me?" I looked at her, really looked at her. A woman who had lost everything except her voice, the one thing that kept her alive. A woman who dared to sing in the streets even when the world refused to see her. A woman whose strength lived in the cracks of her voice. "Because you reminded me who I am," I whispered. "Not the celebrity. Not the performer. The woman. The human being. And humans don't leave other humans to suffer alone." Her eyes filled again, not with fear, but with something warmer. We slipped out the back door of the diner, avoiding the main street where the stranger had vanished. The cold hit us instantly, but I kept my arm around her, guiding her down a narrow block toward the service entrance of the arena, where security finally recognized me and rushed over. "Whitney, where have you been?" "We've been looking everywhere." "No time," I said, cutting them off. "This woman is coming with me. I need her somewhere warm and safe. Now." Security didn't question me. They moved quickly, forming a protective ring around us as we walked. Inside the arena, the backstage area was alive with noise, crew members rolling equipment, stage lights flickering against the walls, the faint hum of speakers warming up. But all of it felt distant, muted, compared to the pounding of my heart. I brought Elena into my dressing room, shut the door, and watched as her body sagged with relief. She looked around, overwhelmed by the warmth, the lights, the soft couch. "Sit," I told her. "You're safe here." She did, slowly, gently, as if afraid she'd break something. or break herself. I should tell you the rest, she murmured. All of it. You deserve to know.
So she did.
She told me everything. About the years of control, the threats, the debts her husband racked up behind closed doors, the men who came to their house asking questions he wouldn't answer, the fear she carried in her stomach every day until it finally shattered her enough to run. Sometimes, she said, her voice cracking, survival looks like a song.
So I sang.
To feel alive, to feel anything. When she finished, I sat beside her. Elena, I whispered, you survived hell.
And now?
Now you're going to build something new. But how? She asked. With what? With your voice, I said. With your story. And with help. My help. Her lips parted in disbelief. At that moment, my stage manager knocked. Whitney, we need you in 5. I looked at Elena, her small frame curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket security had brought her. She stared back at me with a mixture of fear and wonder. Come with me, I said. Her eyes widened. On stage. Yes. I smiled. You're not hiding anymore. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. Minutes later, as I stepped onto the stage and the crowd erupted into thunder, I felt Elena behind me, fragile, shaking, but standing.
Alive.
I turned to her, extended my hand, and whispered, let them hear you. And for the first time, she stepped into the light, not as a victim, but as a voice. A human being no longer invisible, a woman reclaimed. And as the spotlight hit her, I felt something settle inside me, a truth I didn't know I had been searching for. Sometimes we don't save people. Sometimes they save us. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications to never miss the next story.